Thank you for being here. It's Insurance 101. So we want to cover sort of the basics of insurance, business insurance, but also take a deeper dive where you need us to, and feel free to interrupt and ask questions and make it a conversation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Miriam.
Yeah, so my name is Miriam. I'm the Chief Insurance Officer here at Alternative Balance, and I've been working in insurance for about 17 years now, I think, and in various roles. One of my main roles has been in risk management and writing policies and creating programs. So that's my background. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this was to help Alternative Balance members understand what coverage they have and find out areas where maybe some things aren't very clear, because understanding what insurance you have can help you prevent claims and more accurately assess your risk. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lindsay, who is our broker.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. Like Miriam said, we're the insurance broker for the Alternative Balance program. I'm with Nexo Insurance. I'm the director of client services, and I've been in insurance. I'm going on year 8 now. Wow, that went fast. Just want to make sure that we give you a clear understanding of what you have within your policy with Alternative Balance, and answer any questions. I will attempt to make this as user-friendly as possible. Insurance is no one's favorite topic of discussion, so I'll put it in as layman terms as I can. So we really appreciate you joining, and I'll go ahead and jump into it. Okay, so the first and main bulk of the Alternative Balance policy that you have is liability. It is split into 2 different types of liability insurance. One is general liability, and the other is professional liability. So for general liability, this is going to protect you from lawsuits filed by people that are not employed by you. So it's going to cover you for bodily injury and property damage due to potential negligence. It will typically also provide you with insurance fulfillment for any landlord requirements or lender requirements that you may have. And it offers you protection for a lot of things that are just outside your control. The number one type of liability claim or general liability claim that we see is someone just slips and falls on somebody's premise and decides to sue them. At Nexo, we work with quite a few fitness facilities, and my favorite example of this is someone tripped on a curb in front of one of our clients' gyms, face planted into their front door, and sued the city, the client, and the landlord. Even though they weren't a member of the gym, they just happened to be walking by and fell into that facility. So because they got sued and it was a general liability claim, the policy responded. So just simple things like that. The policy has a $2 million per occurrence limit, as well as a $3 million aggregate. So occurrence means per claim, and aggregate means annually. So you could have 3 $1 million claims over the course of your policy term. Knock on wood and fingers crossed that you have none, because no one wants that, but it is available to you. It also has a couple sublimits, which I will go into in just a sec. And I also wanted to point out that all of those, there are, thousands and thousands of Alternative Balance members. Each of those limits that I'm going to be going through is specific to your policy. It's not, for everyone in the program. It's for every individual policy that is issued. Your policy, again, has a few sublimits, some of which are actually, all of which are just standard within commercial general liability. So we have products and completed operations. This in my opinion, doesn't apply to very many alternative balance members. It provides you with protection for your business operations that may have been completed or abandoned. So if you created something and then sold it and it's no longer in your possession, that may come into play if someone has some sort of injury at their home where they took that good that you created. Damage to rented premise. A lot of landlords confuse this coverage for, and they interpret it as the space that you are renting from them, which is not accurate. It is not intended, the sublimit is not intended for a permanently leased location. It's going to extend you coverage for a temporarily rented space. So say you were working with a city and you wanted to use their community space at the local community center for a 2-day event or seminar, and you had some sort of property damage at that temporarily utilized space, that is when that would come into play, not for your normal physical location that you would use on a permanent basis. You have personal and advertising injury as well. That's going to provide you with coverage for slander, libel, if you have any privacy violations, or if you use someone's advertising idea, hopefully not knowingly, and they sue you for utilizing their thoughts or ideas, or, slandering or libeling them. And then we also have medical expense. So that's going to cover medical or funeral expenses for any sort of bodily injury or death. We do have a similar product called participant accident, which I'll explain in a bit. And I will also explain why and how they are different. The most important coverage that we offer, in my personal opinion, is professional liability, which is included in the policy, with those same 2 million, 3 million limits. This is going to provide you with coverage for the professional advice that you give your clients. So it's going to provide you, cover you if you have like any wrongful acts that you may do based on that instruction, any errors or omissions of information, more often than not, accidentally, or misstatement or misleading, of your clients. So good examples of this are going to be poor guidance of, say, a topical moisturizer after some sort of procedure, maybe a facial or a tattoo. Or if you were to poorly program a workout and tell someone, hey, it's day 1, but I think you can do those 50-pound dumbbells, it's going to be no problem. And they end up busting their shoulder. And they need help with paying their medical bills because you gave them poor advice on what weights to be using. So those, in my personal opinion, that's the most important thing we got for you. Does anyone have any questions so far? No. Okay. The program also has a few supplemental coverages that are attached and optional for alternative balance members to purchase for their liability. One is abuse and molestation liability. This is really important for everyone to consider because there's just more litigious activity with regards to that, especially after Me Too, and it's something for everybody to consider. It's going to provide you with protection from allegations of sexual abuse or molestation. That coverage extends to not only your business, but to your employees and your clients. So if your employee has an inappropriate interaction with one of your clients or vice versa, coverage would extend to those situations. An example of this, I hate this example, but we heard about a facility that is not with us, but this particular fitness facility was posting pictures on their Facebook page And it was squat day at the local gym, and the owner had not intended to be malicious or inappropriate with it, but they were focused on butts for squat day. And he posted a few inappropriate comments like hump day and, just had some emojis included. And it was just, everyone felt really uncomfortable about it, and it almost put the whole gym under. So just things to keep in mind, especially with abuse and molestation, it's not about your intent. It's about how someone perceives what you say or do, and just being very conscious of that, to avoid those situations. So just something for everyone to consider. It is optional, and I would highly recommend getting it if you don't currently have it on your policy. And even just throwaway comments or jokes that someone may find offensive is something that, could potentially put you in hot water. The coverage limits are $50,000 per occurrence and $100,000 aggregate. So it gives you a decent amount of coverage for that. We also have data and privacy liability. So this again is an optional coverage that you can choose to opt in or out of. And it's going to provide you with coverage for any violation of privacy laws due to your own potential negligence. It's going to cover privacy notification costs or needing to follow a breach of notice law. The best example of this is someone hacks into your computer and takes all of your client information and, utilizes it to potentially or credit card information if you do end up taking any incoming credit card information, and commits fraud of any kind. It is potentially your responsibility to monitor each of your clients' credit for up to a year after that breach, and each of those is about $200 to $250 a month in order to make sure you're monitoring their credit per law, which adds up very quickly. So it's just something for you guys to consider if you do have any potential information breaches, and just to protect yourself properly from that type of situation. A great example of that is going to be Target. I think that was maybe 10 years ago or so, but they had that huge breach of information and someone hacked in and stole like thousands and thousands of people's information. And it was a big debacle. So a little bit on the larger scale, but still a good example, and something for you guys to consider. Again, it has that $100,000, $200,000 limit for you guys to think about. A coverage that is now automatically included in all of our alternative balance policies is participant accident. This is going to provide you with your first line of defense should someone injure themselves at your facility. It covers any medical expenses that the injured party may have. So say someone comes in, twists their ankle really, really badly, ends up needing to go to the ER and potentially get surgery because they just wrecked themselves. This is something that you can extend to them and offer to them at a $25,000 limit to cover any out-of-pocket medical expenses that they may have. This protects you in a few ways. One, it provides you with a sense of trust between you and your client. You can retain that client rather than having them be really upset that something happened on the premise and they're unable to pay their out-of-pocket medical expenses. It will not raise your rates, your insurance rates, if you utilize it. And it prevents liability exposure and liability lawsuits. So this is somewhat in tandem with that medical expense coverage that I mentioned. The main difference is for someone to use the medical expense sublimit that I explained earlier, they have to file suit against you. No one wants to deal with the whole process of going through legal fun. This, you do not need to do that. You can offer it to them up front and take care of them so that you avoid a legal suit and hopefully pacify them. So there are a bunch of different, sublimits. We have fun ones, accidental death and dismemberment and paralysis. There's different other sublimits that I haven't listed, specific sublimits to feet and hands and eyes, which are all explained in the policy. But the main one to consider is the $25,000 per medical expense with a $500 deductible. And that deductible is going to come out of the insured's. They pay that out of pocket. It is going to be in excess of the insured's health insurance if they do have it. So their health insurance will pay their portion and then we pay the excess. Questions thus far? Yes.
Oh, I have a couple questions just on the last two pieces.
Okay.
And then I have other unrelated questions I'll ask at the end. But so with this one, the participant accident, what if I'm doing a presentation elsewhere? Like this month I have a presentation I'm doing at one of the local libraries.
Mhm.
So would this, because it says here that it's accidents at my facility, so would it still cover if I was presenting elsewhere?
Got it. Yes, so it's gonna follow you around. Sorry for the confusion. At your facility or wherever you happen to be operating at the time.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the data privacy and liability, it's because I don't have like client credit cards or social security numbers in my computer at all. My billing program takes care of the credit cards, that's all in their end. And I don't collect socials. So would that be something that I would be liable for if it's just like the only thing in my computer is like names, email addresses, and phone numbers?
That's a great question. And I appreciate it because it's a finer detail. If you utilize a third-party payment processor, or have someone else hold your client's data for you, you could still be held liable because they are your clients. And you're releasing their information. So it's something to consider. So say you use Stripe and Stripe has a huge data breach, you could still be held liable for the releasing of your client's information. Does that answer your question?
I think it's crappy, but yes, it answers it.
I know it is super crappy, and so it's just something to consider, right? So it is really important that if you do utilize a third-party payment processor, just, ask a few probing questions on like making sure that they have data and privacy liability, or cyber liability, somewhat synonymous. And just making sure that they have that coverage in place for themselves as well.
A lot of my clients use either Venmo or otherwise it goes through Wave, which does their own in-house processing.
So like, I'm sure Venmo has their own cyber. I would really, really hope so, but I can't guarantee it. But it is just something for you to consider for your business protection. Okay. Miriam, can you confirm? I think the data and privacy liability is an extra $100 a year. Is that right?
It's $149 actually.
$149. My apologies. So it's not terribly expensive and could potentially save you a lot of out-of-pocket cost in the unfortunate event that something does occur. So
Jen, real quick, what service do you provide?
Coaching.
Okay. Some of the other information that you might be held responsible for in this context is if you have people's addresses So their phone number, email address maybe isn't considered by the government to be personally identifiable information, which is mostly used in the context of HIPAA laws.
Mhm.
But if you did have their address, say you had their address and their name and their email address in your system on your computer, and you left your computer somewhere and somebody gained access to it, even that information could be used harmfully to your client if somebody else were to have it. And so that's an instance where even though you're not controlling the credit card information that they're, or whatever, their Venmo info to make their payment to you, you're still handling information that is valuable to their privacy.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of there's a lot of different situations where data privacy would come into play, even if your payment processor didn't have a breach. But yeah, so that's just the extra context I would provide there for you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Miriam. I appreciate it. Jen, does that answer all of your questions for
Yes,
now?
for now.
Perfect. Excellent. Okay. The third main coverage that the alternative balance offers is property coverage. I would like to qualify that this coverage was implemented as automatically included on all alternative balance policies effective 7/10. So if you have an effective date prior to 7/10 of 2023, you do not have this coverage. However, we may have an option to provide you with coverage, depending on your operations. It will automatically get included on your renewal policy whenever you come up for renewal. So I just wanted to qualify that. So there are three main arteries of the property coverage that we offer. So the first portion is business personal property. This is going to cover you for all of your business, physical business assets. So your laptop, any furniture that you may have, or technology, all sorts of fun things that you may own as a business owner that are vital to your operations. It is going to cover all perils except for flood, water damage and backup, and earthquake. Flood and earthquake are always going to be separate policies. And that's something that we can help out with. If that is a main concern for you, we at Nexo can help you out. And then just water damage is unfortunately not included on the policy. Business income and extra expense. These are, in my opinion, kind of just sister coverages. They usually go hand in hand. So both of these are activated if you have a physical property loss. So say you have a small fire in your facility, you get it put out, it's all contained, and you submit a claim for the property that was damaged. And say you had to shut down your operations in order to do cleanup and get everything fixed, rip out the walls and flooring that was all damaged. So that shutdown of your operations is going to impact your revenue. So business income is going to come in and it's going to make you whole from a financial standpoint for any lost revenue due to that either full or partial closure, depending on what you are able to do, or what you need to do, excuse me. Extra expense is going to come in and pay for extra expenses due to that loss. So if you did need to shut down and to get everything fixed, and you had to lease a secondary space in order to operate during that time, that additional rent would be considered an extra expense in order to handle the loss. So that would also be extended coverage. So Again, example of that is going to be fire, or if you have a real strong storm that has wind damage to your facility or your property. It also includes theft. And there are 3 different tiers. So there's 10,000, 25,000, and 50,000. And when you renew or purchase your policy, you get to pick which one works best for you, but it's going to default to 10. So if you need more than that, you get to select what works best for your business. Questions? No. Okay. So just a couple commonly asked questions. How do I know what types of insurance policies I need? The number one thing that I would do, and we're happy to help, and that's probably why you're here, is to review your options with an insurance broker or alternative balance staff member who can make sure to go over what you have, what are your operations, what do you do, how much stuff do you have, and they can do a risk assessment, or we can do a risk assessment with you and chat with you about what it is that you need. The alternative balance program is designed to cover all the main bases of what you need. It's designed to be a one-stop shop. But if there are other coverages that you need in excess of the program, let us know. We're more than happy to help you out. We can also go over policies and coverage forms. So say you're shopping your insurance, we can make sure to review any competitors with you to show you the differences on both coverage and cost so that we can go over that with you. You know what you're purchasing, and you can make an educated decision on what works best for your options or for your operations, excuse me. And for that, while policy limits may be the same, say both have a $2 million per occurrence, the actual meat and potatoes of the policy is all the horrible words that you have to read in that like 60-page long document that no one wants to read, right? So if there's a policy exclusion in there, it doesn't matter if the limits are the same, something may not be covered. So it's really important to go through your policy with a fine-tooth comb and know what is included and what's excluded. So that you can avoid those exclusions and mitigate any potential liability risk for yourself. If you do choose to shop, sorry, I got ahead of myself a little bit. The main things to focus on are going to be those forms and endorsements, which we are more than happy to review with you. Again, those coverage limits. Things to consider with limits too are they going to fulfill any landlord or lender requirements? And just get that out of the way right off the bat and make sure that you're meeting all of those contractual requirements that you do have, as well as meeting any operational needs that you have for your business. And pricing, we don't want to make you pay more than you actually have to and tack on a bunch of extra stuff that you don't actually need. We're not here to gut you. And so we want to make sure that we advise you properly on what it is that you need. However, you want to take into consideration, right? So if you're going to pay an extra $149 a year for data and privacy liability, that's going to be significantly less than not paying for it and having $20,000 out of pocket that you need to pay if something does go awry. I don't want to be a fear monger, but something to consider.
Lindsay, can I add a couple of things?
Absolutely.
With this section. So we had somebody call in and they were comparing another company's coverage to ours, and they had this other company's coverage for probably 3-4 years already. And when I was looking through their policy, I noticed that they had a sublimit for defense costs of $25,000, which is very, very low. And they didn't realize that was a sublimit that they had. They also didn't realize that the policy specifically said that they were only allowed to practice at one location, and they had been going out to other locations to do their work, not realizing that they wouldn't have been covered in that case. And there were a couple of other small things that were kind of buried within the policy document that they had no idea about, and it really wasn't the right fit for their business and what they did. And so I think it was a really good eye opener for this potential client, that it is important to really understand what exclusions there are, what limitations, what sublimits. Transparency is key. We try to do that here at Alternative Balance, but sometimes some things can get missed when you're looking at insurance policies, depending on your business. And so we've designed our policy to account for most of what people need in these industries that we focus on. So that kind of is what makes us different. But it just goes to show that it's important to understand your policy coverages. We had another person just last week who sent in their policy that they have, and because they were worried that they were paying too much, and they were considering switching to Alternative Balance. And looking at that policy, I noticed they had a ton of coverage that we didn't include. Like, they were paying for hired auto, non-owned auto, business auto coverage. They were paying for extra breach of contract coverage, and all these other things that it turned out were things that they actually did need. And so they weren't a right fit for Alternative Balance. So, it kind of goes both ways. We don't want to undercover somebody, but we want to make sure that our coverage is going to be the right coverage. So those are just some examples of kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum there. So, yeah.
Yeah, we at Nexo do a lot of contrast comparisons. And sometimes it's a great fit, and sometimes we can't meet their needs. I don't want to say that I can do everything for you, especially if we can't, or we're just not the right fit. Another example is I had a client, he owns a gym, and his liability policy had an athletic participant exclusion. Which pretty much would negate everything if any of his clients were to have some sort of athletic injury while at his fitness facility. And no one wants to read the legalese of their policy, and I cannot say that I blame you. So if you do have contracts or insurance related questions, send them our way. We're more than happy to review it. We can be your specialist on whatever it is that you need for reviewing fun things. I think Miriam is pro at insurance legalese. I'm working to get up to her level. So
I admit I enjoy it.
That's the difference. So anyways, lean on us. We're happy to help. And then the next question, I think, again, we kind of skipped ahead, are what are insurance forms and endorsements, and why are they important to review? A little bit of a rehash, so I'll keep it quick. There is a forms and endorsements list that's usually at the beginning of an insurance policy that just gives a itemized list of all the endorsements and policy forms that are included within your policy document. At minimum, just take a peek at that and take a look. If anything weird catches your eye or any exclusions are in there, just ask about it. There are some very standard ones that, we're not going to be able to help out with, like mold and fungus exclusions or asbestos exclusions. No one's going to offer coverage for that unless you get a separate policy for it. But I don't think those are many main concerns for Alternative Balance members. Sometimes there are buyback options, right? So we do have those buyback options for sexual abuse and molestation and data privacy for you guys to consider. And just important for you guys to consider if there are any gaps in coverage. And again, we're more than happy to help out. Any questions on any of those fun samples and legal examples? No. Okay, cool. And what is risk management and why is it important for all businesses to consider? Risk management is going to prevent you from having insurance claims to the best of your ability. So this is really just getting ahead of preventing incidents and liability issues for you, and just stopping them in their tracks before they can ever happen. And again, I do not intend to be a fearmongerer. I've just seen way too many weird things happen. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when an issue is going to happen, right? My dad always is telling me weird stuff happens, so just be ready for anything. And it served me well. Risk management also helps keep your premium down, right? So if you do have claims, the rates may go up because there has now been a claim associated with your particular policy, and ensuring that the claims are low for the whole program keeps everybody's rates low. So just a few things that you can do is making sure that you have waivers in place for anyone that you work with, and making sure that that waiver is a good one. Nexo has a sample waiver. I believe Alternative Balance has a sample waiver as well. But sorry, go ahead, Miriam.
Oh, just that's one of our member benefits, is that we have a whole list of waiver templates that we've put together for a ton of different industries that we serve.
Yeah, and even if you want to go a step farther, right? Having a local attorney review that waiver is definitely a recommendation, because laws vary by state, by county, and they're going to know your requirements and regulations best. Educating your clients about your services before the service starts. So if you're in the massage industry, hey, this is kind of just what we're going to go through. Are you comfortable with all of that? Is there anything that I need to avoid? Do you have any pain, or any sort of just general questions, and just an overview of what you're going to be doing so that they're prepared for it. And then getting a verbal response or written, depending on what you require, as confirmation that they understand what they expect and what you're offering.
I think we also have client intake form samples for different industries as well. So that's a really good way to get written confirmation of any injuries that they might have had prior, or any concerns that they have before you start your service. That just really helps with the communication, because I think communication in that context is one of the best ways to start your risk management with your client, with that specific client. So yeah, we do offer client intake forms as well.
That's a great way to just make sure that you have a good understanding of what your client's needs are with regards to that. So thank you, Miriam. Another one is keeping your area clean and just making sure that cords and furniture and decorations are secured and out of the way. The last thing you want is to have water on the ground and someone slip and fall and break their tailbone, or have a picture fall off the wall and hit someone in the head. Weird stuff, right? I do believe that is a claim that occurred, just a sample. So, and then just finally, oh, sorry, go ahead, Miriam.
Oh, no, I was just saying, yep, that is a claim that happened.
Yeah. And then just finally, just making sure you have the right insurance, to make sure that it's going to protect you properly. I know insurance in broad strokes has kind of that negative connotation of like, I never use it, or it's, not going to cover me when I do need it. But that's why making sure that you have the coverage that you need is important, and educating yourself on what you do have, so that you know, and what you don't have as well, so that you can avoid those types of circumstances. So I think that is the last slide. Thank you so much, Michelle, for being my scroller. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
My
Hopefully you
computer,
set it up okay.
no, it was fine. My computer unfroze itself about 10 minutes ago. So we would have been sitting here for 35 minutes otherwise. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions about anything that I've gone over, or just general insurance questions that I may be able to answer and help you out with, or anything about anything? really.
I have a question.
Yeah, you got it. What's going on, Tracy?
So I am coming up on renewal here in a couple weeks.
Awesome.
And I've had a lot of changes within my business over the last year. Is there a way to schedule a call with somebody? Because some of the stuff is kind of intricate. So just to put it all in an email and send it to you would, probably not be most effective. Can we set up an appointment with your office just to go over what we currently have and then, do that assessment of whether we need something different or more as far as
Sure.
writer?
Yeah, feel free to call our main customer service line. They can chat with you anytime over the phone and go through your current policy and then review if you need to make any changes to that. If there are things that they can't answer, I'm happy to hop on a call with you directly as well. So yeah, whatever you need on that. But yeah, start with customer service. They're well versed in what we can offer. So
Okay, thank you.
all right.
Anything else from anybody? Awesome.
I do have a couple questions if no one else has questions.
Yeah, go for it, Jen.
So one of the things, and I think you may have mentioned it right off the top, but I can't remember, is if there is a claim against my business, does my insurance policy cover my legal fees in that?
Yeah,
whole-
so defense costs are included within the limit of liability.
Okay, I thought you said that, but
I don't think I did actually, so that's a
Okay.
great question. I think Miriam mentioned someone not having that on a different policy, but great question for clarification.
and then one is kind of, it came to me few months back. I have a neighbor who has a mobile dog grooming business, and so of course has a hard time finding any insurance anyway. But one night she was taking out the trash and she fell and broke her ankle. Since it was in her house, it wasn't considered part of the business, and so her insurance didn't cover any of her lost wages because it's kind of hard to, drive a van or groom pets when you have a trimolar fracture. And so it just kind of popped that thing in my head, like if something were to happen to me unrelated to the business, would my insurance, is there like any rider in there that covers business losses due to personal injury? And that's kind of a weird
No.
one, but I didn't know.
No, and if you did have a personal injury, even while on the job, that
Mhm.
would be a workers' compensation claim. Which would need to be completely separate from the alternative balance program as well. So, that participant accident insurance is intended for clients, not for
Right.
owners. So it may have been a wishy-washy, maybe work comp claim.
Yeah.
She could have potentially argued for it. But the answer to your question is no.
Okay, because I was looking at, for me, like I'm an LLC, but I'm the only one, so I don't have workman's comp or anything like that because I don't have employees. So that's where like that got me thinking, like, is any of that covered in the insurance? And it sounds like
Yeah.
no.
No, but you can purchase work comp for yourself as
Okay.
an owner. So it doesn't necessarily have to be for your employees. You can get it for you too.
That is interesting. And my last one, I don't know if you would have the answer to, but when you were talking about waivers and things like that, it kind of got my brain going, and this would be more of like a legal question for a lawyer, I think, than you, but I'm going to ask in case you know. So like when I'm giving a presentation where like, sometimes I'm being paid to speak, other times it's just like community service, I never give waivers because I'm just giving people information. I'm not like doing any kind of coaching at that point. I don't see where a waiver would be needed, but I don't know. What are your, if I'm just doing like an educational presentation?
Always gets weird in those kind of situations. If you're being hired by somebody to give a presentation, I would recommend just having the one person that's hiring you sign the waiver.
Okay,
Just to simplify things, and they can sign it on behalf of any guests that show up.
okay,
And then as far as other situations, I would recommend a waiver. It's not gonna hurt.
right. Okay,
And you just never know. So that I would do it as more of a cover your butt kind of a thing.
yeah, because I was thinking like the webinar I did through here, like it never, like through Alternative Balance, it never occurred to me that I would need a waiver for anything like that, but then I am giving people a lot of very specific information and suggestions, so.
Mhm. Yeah.
I
So
think one of the
just so you
things
know-
that we
Oh, go ahead.
recommend is, what's that?
I was just gonna say, for the member webinars, we have everybody sign a waiver
Oh.
going to the webinar, just so you know. Yeah,
That's one of those things I click on and never read.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna say. A lot of times when you're doing group things like that, you know, if it's a webinar, then you can always have one of those pop-ups that when they join, they have to accept the terms and conditions. Another thing is that, like on your website, if you're giving advice, on a blog post or something, having a website disclaimer in your terms and conditions for the website, you can say, you know, this is, you know, here's a disclaimer that by reading this, you're accepting that, you know, you're responsible, or you release me from all liability. The same thing that would be in a signed waiver, you can put that in your terms and conditions on your website, or at the bottom of a presentation, have a disclaimer, that by participating or watching, they accept their own responsibility for their actions and XYZ. You can just take some of that language from a waiver and put it in. And so that does also help protect you in those cases where it's not practical to get every single person to sign something.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And thank you both for all the rest of the information too. This has been awesome.
Oh, good, sure.
Yeah. So I hope I didn't drone on about insurance too much.
We do have
mean,
one
that
more
was-
question in the chat.
Oh, great.
From Daniela.
Daniela.
Yeah. It looks like, so she went from teaching classes online to now renting her own studio for yoga. And she wants to know if anything has changed for her coverage by doing that. And then also if she sublets to other therapists.
So from a coverage standpoint, I don't think the coverage changes at all if they go from online to in person. So that shouldn't be a problem. As far as subletting space, you're definitely going to want to make sure that whoever you're subletting from has their own insurance and list you as an additional insured. As far as insurance requirements that you want to make them have, that's up to you, but I would suggest a 1 million per occurrence, $3 million aggregate minimum. And
Or you could
just,
sign up as an Alternative Balance affiliate and send them to us and have them get their own insurance through us, and you get $20.
hey, there
No,
you
they
go.
have the right coverage.
There you go. And then you'd know for sure. But making sure that they list you as an additional insured on their policy is going to be real important. Just so that you get that extra protection just in case they do get sued for their own operations and you somehow get dragged into it as their landlord. Yes.
May I ask you, so the additional insured, it's just one fixed person, or it could be every single person that is subletting the space? Because it won't be only this, it won't be the same person, it will be different persons all the time.
I would get an additional insured certificate from everybody if they are all under different, you know, if they're all contractors, they each need to have their own insurance. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And that's another thing I wanted to mention, Jen, going back to your question about when you're presenting. I would also recommend that you have whoever's putting on the event add you as an additional insured on their policy.
They may ask that of you as well, and sometimes you can do an exchange.
Mhm. Yeah.
Perf.
And adding an additionally insured, is that just in the portal, the member portal that they do that, or is that they have to call customer service to do that?
They can do that directly through their policy in their account online on alternativebalance.com. You can do it anytime. It's $10 to add somebody as an additional insured on your policy. But yeah, you can do that anytime. If someone requires special endorsements, then there's an extra charge for that. But whoever's requesting to be added to your policy is going to tell you exactly what they're requiring. And our customer service can help you with that, because sometimes it's confusing and sometimes people don't, these companies asking for that have a lot of really confusing requirements. So we are happy to help with that as well.
Absolutely. My favorite are when they have contradicting requirements.
Yeah, that's always an interesting situation. But we
Awesome.
figure it out. We get it.
Yeah,
We get it
yes, exactly. Anything else from anybody? No? Well, thank you so much for letting me speak insurance to you guys today. I appreciate your time, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful rest of your week. You guys all brought great questions for me, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye.